And that should be us live now. Do we want to quickly, again, go around and do a volume check on everyone? Just so I can see it now on the live feeds. Nick, do you want to go first for us?
Volume check, volume check. How is my volume? If I
Perfect.
talk a little bit louder, is it fine?
That's perfect, thank you. Christopher?
Volume check. Check 1, 2.
Yeah, that's
I
cool.
can
Thank you.
give you more if you need it.
Maybe a touch more, if you don't mind.
More.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
I think you might be getting some echo off us there, so I'll just look to that.
Echo.
There is a time. Oh, they've gone. They've gone.
Oh no!
Press the wrong button.
Just
Yeah,
removing
echoed.
themselves from the equation. Yeah.
That's
Okay.
usually my speciality in conference calls at work.
Do you want to give us another quick test? Yeah,
Echo.
that's fine.
Yeah, I can't hear anything there. Cool.
And
Absolutely
our
beautiful.
level's okay.
Just do a little talky talk for us.
Talking, still talking.
Talking, helping.
Yeah, that's good. It's a little quiet, but I'm worried if you turn it up more, then we'll start to encounter echo problems. But that's fine. Oh, I could turn it up my side actually, couldn't I? Let's do that.
Still have individual users.
No. Okay, that's not. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's all good. Cool. Right. Welcome to Call of Cthulhu. We are in 1920s, roughly, England. We're not being too worried about specifically what year it is, mainly because some of the stuff that we'll be running relies on actual events that occur in the 1920s. And I don't necessarily want to do those things in that order. But broadly, 1920s England, ostensibly 1920s London is where we'll be based. But as we'll see soon, we'll be exploring most of England, which will be nice. The setup for this wider campaign and group is that all of the investigators have previously worked with an agency, an investigative agency, who specialize in debunking paranormal rumors or claims. They do the normal kind of work as well. My husband's cheating on me, or this person has run away and got lost. Like all of that kind of normal stuff is almost their bread and butter, really. But they market themselves and are known for debunking famous hauntings and that kind of stuff. That agency is called Hudson and Brand. It's been around for probably about 40 or 50 years. Hudson and Brand themselves are no longer there. It is now owned by a loose collection of people who previously worked there. So the work that you get through it is kind of ad hoc and almost up to you how involved or not you are in it. They will, as a collective, have a set of a record of people they've worked with and their specialties and that kind of thing. And so will either form a group out of people that they know so that the right specialities are present in the group investigating, or will just throw stuff open if they're not super worried about taking the job or not, or there's no time importance to the job, and say, hey, does anyone need some work? Does anyone want to work on this? That kind of stuff. So it's quite an informal business as a whole, as a result of it being owned by about 6 people with equal shares. They have a building in London, which is a townhouse in Soho. It is on the same street as a members club, and Hudson and Brand were both members of that members club. It itself has pretty good facilities. It has its own library of materials that people use for researching. It has its own lounge. It has its own staff. There is a chef and a manservant who both live in that house. And that is open for you to use. There aren't any places to stay. There aren't any rooms. But if you are the type of person who would belong to a members club, it would not be hard for the owners to arrange for you to be able to get membership to that members club, and they have accommodation. Otherwise, if you're the members club, that is a really good question. Let me look that up.
Thrown you already.
Yeah, that is something I should have looked
How gender
up.
inclusive is it? I think a lot of these Victorian things are very male orientated.
Yeah, it would not be very. It would be exclusively.
Sausage fest.
Yeah, it would be exclusively men. It originally was a military members club, so it would only be people who retired from the armed forces. However, it has opened its books to a slightly wider range of clientele. That being said, given the history with Hudson and Brand, if you needed something from it, Kath, Miss Ridley, they would maybe make exceptions about you staying there. You would probably have to use like a side entrance so that you didn't disturb the other members. And if there are any facilities in there that for some reason you couldn't send your own manservant to go and get, or something like that, then arrangements could be made. Where is the name of this club? I'll look the name of the club up. It's not coming up in my search of the notes, unless that's going to find it. Nope. Cool. I'll find that for you in a second. Apologies. You all have gathered in London, if you are living outside of London, because the agency has put you together to investigate, to accept a job from the National Laboratory of Psychical Research, which has offered to fund an investigation into the haunting of Strathmore Manor. Strathmore Manor is in Scotland, near Inverness. It is in the village of Strathmore, which is just outside Inverness. I shared in the chat the newspaper clipping, but I will read it out to you as well for the purposes of the stream. The headline is "Brutal Murder in Scotland," and subtitle, "Accused Blames Haunted House." Inverness are continuing their investigations into the brutal murder of Mr. Donald Mccall, a distillery worker from the small Highland village of Strathmore. The officer in charge of the investigation, Inspector Charles Sinclair, told our reporter that Mr. McCall's horribly slashed and mutilated body was found on the outskirts of the isolated village late last Saturday night. As the villagers made their way home from a party at the local hotel, the only other member of the village community not present at the party, shepherd boy Jamie McLeod, I can't read, Jamie McLeod,
It's pronounced McLeod. Yeah.
McLeod, yes, is helping police with inquiries. Apparently, he claims to have been exploring the deserted manor of the McMahon family, once lairds of the manor, who died out 100 years ago. Locals hold that the manor is haunted, and MacLeod is reported to have claimed that the murder must have been committed by one of the ghosts that had become disturbed by his investigations. Inspector Sinclair is refusing to consider the possibility of a supernatural explanation for the crime, but does admit that certain aspects of the mystery, including the ferocity of the murder and the apparent lack of motive, defy rational explanation. The National Laboratory for Psychical Research has offered to fund an investigation into the haunting of Strathmore Manor. Applicants for posts on the investigative committee are invited to contact Director Mr. Harry Price at 19 Buckingham Place, London, not Buckingham Palace, and that was in the Sunday Review. The agency has contacted Harry Price and arranged and agreed that you'll be going. So he is expecting you. There is a train to Inverness. If you go to Hudson and Brand House, then you will be provided with the train tickets for the day after. That train leaves from Euston and goes via Perth to Inverness. At this point, you would all be gathered in the lounge area, the common room of the building. Would you like to go around and introduce your characters, a brief physical description, and their specialties or jobs? Nick, would you like to go first?
So I'm playing Stanley Chevenix Norton. He's has a kind of anxious expression and is wearing a blue worsted suit. What time of year?
It's springtime.
And a straw boater. And yeah, he's sort of standing just kind of with a slight sort of tense expression on his face, just kind of watching people as they go past.
Cool, thank you very much. Chris.
So I'm playing William Thatcher. He's sort of I don't know, around 5'9", but he works as a laboratory assistant, but is perhaps somewhat more handsome and square-jawed than you might expect from your stereotypical laboratory chap. He's maybe a tanned, depending on how much sun there has been in spring. He does most of his research outside when reading books in the park and such, so he likes to spend a bit of time in the outdoors. So slim, but not, overly strong. So like fit, but not, in an aggressive kind of, not aggressive, a weightliftery or whatever passes for fitness in the 20s, which isn't boxing or something. I don't know. Yeah, he's probably wearing. He came prepared for travel on train and worse weather in Scotland, so he's probably got quite a heavy wax coat, and maybe carrying a hat of some sort. Yeah.
Cool, thank you. Rich.
Right.
Oh, sorry.
Mr.
Would you like Kath to go first? Would that make more
That
sense?
probably makes more sense.
Sorry, Kath.
I'm Phoebe Ridley. I am in my late 30s, and so is my character, Badumch. She's small, has delicate build, and elegantly upswept hair. She looks smart and well maintained, always impeccably dressed.
Lovely.
And I'm Mr. Rummage, or just Rummage, depending on how you address the serving classes. I am Miss Ridley's butler. I'm in my middle-aged.
And so is your character.
Indeed. grey, very receding hair, quite thin on top, fairly short, slightly hunched over, but not frail by any means. And will be dressed as in appropriate butler's attire, with probably quite a heavy coat and hat for the weather.
Okay. Arrangements have been made for you all to stay nearby. Miss Ridley and Mr. Rummage will be in a nearby hotel. Mr. Thatcher and Mr. How do you pronounce that name, Nick? Chevenix?
Norton,
Say it again, sorry.
you're on mute, Nick.
That'd be Mr. Norton, wouldn't it?
Nick, you are muted. I think that second name is double-barreled.
Sorry, it would be Mr. Chevenix Norton.
Chevenix Norton. Chevenix Norton. You will be in the clubhouse.
If it's possible, I'll have arranged for a car for Miss Ridley and myself.
Yeah, that's absolutely possible. They can. It's potentially not necessary. They can call you a cab, but if you would like to, that is up to you.
We'll have arranged for a car. I know Miss Ridley prefers to be the mistress of her own destiny.
Very well.
But not to the extent that you let me drive.
I prefer to be the master of my own demise.
Sorry, I think I've just found where the name of the Morana Club. There we go. Morana.
Club is
Morana.
Interesting.
Okay. Once you have been given the newspaper clipping and your tickets for tomorrow and the details about your lodgings, you are welcome to spend the evening enjoying the facilities, namely the alcohol, or spend your evening how you wish. The train leaves early-ish morning tomorrow morning. Is there anything you'd all like to do?
I think a lot of my evening will be spent packing. I don't think Miss Ridley travels light.
She doesn't strike me as someone that travels light, no.
I travel light. That's why I have you.
There will be an awful lot of different outfits available.
Very sensible.
All impeccably tailored and suiting my body type and colouring.
Very
And
nice.
the most modern of fashions, of course.
Mr. Thatcher and Mr. Chevix Norton, you are booked into the Morana Club, which has a games room. If you would like to spend the evening playing pool or at the bar talking to other people, or you can go out and enjoy the London nightlife.
I think I'd probably be found at the pool table.
Okay.
I think I might probably. I live in London, so I think I'll actually probably spend the evening probably either in the smoking room, perhaps reading about Strathbourne Manor,
Mhm.
or in my room reading about Strathbourne Manor if there is no reading area available.
Yeah, there's a common room at Hudson and Brand. It's not particularly private, and people could be coming in and going out. So if you want like a library kind of area, you can go into the library, which has some like tables and reading lights. Or if you want a more casual thing, you can sit by the fire near the drinks trolley.
I'd
in
probably
the-
be in the library trying to find any
Okay.
folklorish tales or something like that.
Sure. So the library doesn't have a lot of information about Strathmore.
Right.
It's quite a small village outside of Inverness, and you struggle to find any kind of mention of it really in a London-based library.
Yeah.
You would suspect there would be more information in a Scottish library.
So yeah, if I don't end up finding anything specifically Strathmore, I probably try and find things local to the area, so either about Inverness or just familiarize myself with more generic Scottish folklore stuff.
Sure. So pretty much everything that you find is like the Loch Ness monster and that kind of thing with traditional folklore-y stuff, but nothing really. There's a couple of candidates of there's a couple of things that are in traditional folklore that, if they existed, this could be.
Yeah, sure.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Cool. In that case, unless anyone wants to do anything differently, everyone arrives on time for the train. I'm not going to make you roll to battle London traffic, and gets on the train.
Question: How common is it for people to go about armed in this setting? Is this like Miss Fisher, where everyone has got a revolver tucked under their seat at all times, or is that more like?
So it would be. It's not unusual if you were an officer in the war. So this is shortly after the Great War, and officers. It would be common, I would say, for officers to carry their service revolver. For anyone else, it would still be difficult to get hold of. I forget the actual laws around who's allowed them and stuff. But if you certainly wouldn't really be able to carry one around London. If you were a farmer, you'd have a veritable armory, and probably wouldn't have any kind of permit for it, but no one really cares. Don't carry a shotgun around London streets.
Been a spotted bother up on.
It would. It's going to be more of an impact on you if people think it's weird. And so if you are carrying something for self-defense in a civilized area, that's going to be weird.
Well, we are going to Scotland.
You are going to Scotland. So weapons intended to kill a person, rifles, pistols, etc., wouldn't really be carried around. But seeing a farmer with a shotgun cocked over his shoulder is not unusual.
That's right. In that case, I think we should assume we're unarmed.
If you wanted to acquire a pistol or own a pistol and pack that and take it, that's fine. Your
Very
bags.
difficult to wave it around, but
Yeah, exactly. Like you wouldn't carry it around with you as a matter of course, but having it packed with you, you could get away with that.
The butler twitches open his coat to reveal the shoulder rig.
Yeah. Okay. The train is a sleeper train, and you'll be traveling for over 24 hours. So all of the day, you'll sleep the evening at night, and then a fair chunk of the next day as well, to arrive in Inverness. Let me just drop in the map of Inverness for you, which will hopefully highlight the differences between Inverness in the 1920s to Inverness now, if anyone's been. How do I do this? Here we go. So that is the town centre of Inverness. It is very much a town, and after that gets residential for a bit, and then fields. It's quite small and is very definitely a town rather than a city. You arrive into the railway station. Some things that you would know about Inverness. The temperance movement that have recently had alcohol banned or successfully had alcohol banned in America has quite a strong presence in Scotland generally. Sorry?
Ugh, ridiculous people.
And as a result, it's not particularly easy to get hold of alcohol. It's not illegal, but there are outside of hotels and some pubs, you can't really buy alcohol. You can't really buy like at a shop. You can't buy bottled beer really.
David.
Would you the police station, that's what I was going to say, is in Inverness. There isn't one in Strathmore. So the police are based here. Strathmore's just like a tiny little village. So what's the policeman's name that I said?
Sinclair.
Sinclair.
Charles Sinclair.
Thank you. Charles Sinclair is based here. From here, you would need to get a cab or hire a car to take you to Strathmore.
We will be
There's
following.
there's no train into Strathmore.
Correct.
It's only, yeah.
So did you say how far a journey it is to Strathmore?
Get directions.
It's not particularly far. It probably is only maybe 45 minutes to an hour.
Do be a good chap and hire a car big enough for everyone.
Of course, Miss Ridley.
You can do that quite easily. There are facilities at the station. One of the station guard would be able to point you to where you could acquire a car.
Shall get something suitable and oversee the loading of the luggage.
Okay. There is the station hotel in Inverness, which is right by the station. That's where you, if anyone inquired about where the best place to stay was, that's not the only place to stay, but the other cheaper hotels are quite run down. They are more for student tourists. They don't serve alcohol, that kind of thing.
Station hotel it is.
The police are housed in the county offices that you can see there in that map.
The map, for some reason, we can't see the labels on it very clearly, even when we open originals.
Oh, really? That is because they are not very clear in the PDF, I'm afraid. So the council offices are right down at the bottom. Working clockwise from the railway station in the top right, you've got the High Street, Taylor's Lane, the Castle, Castle Street, council offices, the museum and library, the suspension bridge, Huntley Street, Bank Street, Poot Bridge, and Church Street, Academy Street, the post office, Queensgate. So for the purposes of the stream, Inverness is a fairly small, what's that, 1, 2, 3, 4 streets by 4 streets, roughly square, with like a spit coming off the bottom with the castle and the museum and council offices on the bottom. What would you like to do?
Well, what time are we getting in?
So this is early afternoon.
Arriving in Inverness.
Mhm.
On the train, assuming this is the first time I've met you all, I would have introduced myself. William Thatcher. Please do call me Bill. And giving everyone a handshake and touched a country forelock to Miss Ridley. I suggest we offload our luggage first of all. What do we?
That sounds like a very solid idea.
I'll have it sent on to the hotel, although I assume we should keep hold of the bag with your nerve tonics, Miss Ridley.
Of course. She grins and winks at the other party members impishly.
Pure cocaine.
Prescribed by your local physician, of course.
That'd probably be more legal than alcohol.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we should talk to the police. They seem to have been involved in the incident. They will know more than anyone else.
Yes, it
Sound
was
idea, Miss
Sinclair,
Ridley?
wasn't it?
I believe so, yes. Should we pay them a visit?
Yes, lads.
Inspector Charles Sinclair, yes.
We'll make the necessary arrangements for the luggage.
I boldly ask directions from someone at the station and stride off with a purpose.
How are you dressed?
Oh, probably, well, how cold is it? What time of year are we talking?
It's mid-spring, so it would probably be bright, but potentially still quite chilly, especially for someone used to London. You're in the Highlands now, so it'd probably still be a little chilly.
I'm not good with fashion. Whatever's appropriate and stylish and glam. I probably have heels that I wouldn't be able to walk in out of character, but my character can, all right?
You would probably have quite a nice fur trim coat, a very stylish hat, and maybe like a mink scarf or something. Gloves, very nice gloves as well.
Racy, but not exactly staid either.
Okay,
Glamorous.
nice, very glamorous.
Possibly, we'll be really out of place in rural Scotland if we go to the village. But anyway, that's we can burn that bridge when we get to it.
Wonderful.
I think I'll probably put on over my suit quite heavy-looking military greatcoat, but where there would be military insignia, you can see it's been carefully picked away and slightly too long in the sleeves.
Okay. Is there anything anyone else would have liked to have done on the train? Apologies, I should have given you the opportunity to chat and say hi a little bit.
Everyone got to know them a bit. But...
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, would have perhaps asked where everyone's from, maybe. Mr. Sinclair, where do you?
Oh, my family down in Perth. Oh, sorry, I thought it was a miss. Sorry.
No, sorry, I said Mr. Sinclair, which is the copy.
Yes,
again.
the inspector.
I meant to say Mr. Chevenix Norton, and excuse me for my rudeness, but I don't suppose there's any way of shortening that early on.
You're welcome to call me Stanley.
Stanley, perfect.
Well, I'm so sorry. Bill, yes?
Yes, Bill.
Sorry,
yes, please.
What was it you wanted to know?
Where do you come from, Stanley?
Oh, originally from Great Two in Oxfordshire. I don't know if you've been. It's a beautiful little village. It's tucked away in the hills. It's a lovely place.
Oh, sounds delightful. Sounds not too. I grew up in Bath, so it sounds like a very similar kind of up.
Yes, I suppose you will have seen quite the social circle in Bath come summertime.
Oh yes, well I'm more from the outskirts. You get all sorts of funny sorts out there. So yes, definitely not your run of the mill type.
Sounds most interesting.
And Miss Ridley, where do you come from?
Oh, not very far at all. I live in Paddington.
Ah, born and bred.
Nice little place
Born-
there. Very convenient for
Londoner.
everything.
Very nice. And how long have you been with Miss Ridley, Mr. Rum?
I worked for her father. So, must be about 20 years now, if I'm correct.
Oh, very nice.
As you go into the county offices, if that is indeed what you're doing first, there are signs pointing you to the police station. It's called, but it's like an area, from a separate entrance. Sorry. You come up to the front desk, where there is a police officer.
His name?
Sinclair.
Good morning. Good afternoon. We'd like to speak to Detective Inspector Sinclair, please.
I would like to say at this point that I'm absolutely not doing a Highland Scottish accent. So
God damn it,
please,
Adam. You went to the bit.
no accents. I'm not doing them. Apologies
You'll
for
have your
anyone
fee.
that was
That's it,
waiting.
I'm done.
I will deeply offend a sizable chunk of the people who are likely to watch this, so I won't. The police officer looks at you and says, "And who can I say is calling?"
Good question.
Phoebe.
Miss Phoebe Ridley. We're down to talk to him about what happened in Strathmore.
He's jotting all this down as he goes.
We come from, and I'll give the name of the agency. We've been
Hudson
sent
and
to.
Brand.
Yes. we've been sent to do a bit of to find out some information about what happened there.
Oh yes,
Like
nasty
this
business.
Calming expression. I cannot fizz rap.
He asks you to wait here, and says that you could take a seat. And there's some seats in that room. And he goes, stands up and goes into a corridor behind him. After a little while, he comes back and says, "You can go through. It is the second door on the right."
I will head on. Wait for the others to come with me. Is
Yeah,
everyone
I
coming
will
with?
I will happily let Miss Ridley lead the way.
She will happily
Okay.
do so if
You do so. The door is closed. If you'd like to knock, there is then a voice inside says, "Oh, do come through. Don't come through." And if you enter, you find Inspector Sinclair, who is sat behind a desk. This is obviously his office, and he beckons you in. He is, you would guess, maybe in his late 40s, early 50s kind of age. He's in uniform, and he's dressed quite smartly. He beckons you in and sits you down.
like a man in uniform.
um,
Sinclair. More greet him.
he says, "You are the team from the National Laboratory of Psychical Research. Is that correct?"
That's right. Well, we come from Hudson and Brand. We've been contracted to help.
Yes, I understand. I've been fully briefed that you'll be investigating. How can I help you?
We just wanted to know a bit more about what happened. We haven't heard much more than a newspaper article, but obviously they have to be a bit more discreet. So I was wondering if you could tell us all about it from your perspective.
Certainly. I don't know how much I can add that will help you that you may not have read about in the newspapers. But there was a murder at the abandoned manor in Strathmore.
It's been abandoned for quite some time, I gather.
I believe that is the case. Correct. The suspect that we are currently holding was the only member of the town who didn't have an alibi.
This is the young Mr. McLeod, yes?
That's correct, yes. Mr. McLeod admits to being in the location at the time of the murder. And we additionally have character witnesses who will testify that he is capable of murder.
Do they not have any travellers or visitors or vagrants that might be accounted for it?
Strathmore is not a hub of commerce or has any features which might encourage tourism.
You choose your words carefully, Inspector Sinclair.
Sorry
You
to interrupt. To carry on.
if you want, you can take a psychology check.
Yeah,
Anyone
I
who
think
would
I'll
like
go for
to.
that. That's a 68. My psychology is 40. So that's a fail.
Do I have psychology?
You do.
I do.
Not very.
So I'm real. 49. No.
No,
By 19.
You only have succeeded.
Only if it's successful.
Chris, did you succeed?
I have nothing in psychology, so I haven't rolled.
Oh, okay, cool. And Rich?
So
Same. Yes, he does choose his words carefully. Um, did you say that to him, or was that a comment to me, Nick?
No, I was saying that to him.
He smiles a little dryly at you and says, "Thank you." Is there anything else I can help you with?
So what exactly happened? I know they've said there was a murder, but what happened to the man?
The victim. The victim was, and I'm sorry to say, my lady, that the victim was murdered in a very brutal fashion.
That's fine. I'm here. I'm here to do a job. You can tell me.
I don't know that I can offer anything else that will be helpful. The murder was of a nature that is abhorrent to the right-thinking individual, and betrays a bestial and devilish nature of the man who committed it.
Oh dear. What's happened to the body? Was it checked by a coroner, medical examiner? What do you have here?
Yes, the body was taken to our coroner and has since been buried.
Would they be willing? Would you be willing to introduce us? They would so they would tell us more if necessary.
I can give you a letter from myself introducing you to the coroner, such that he can give you whatever information you require. I can also give you the report that the coroner made, if you
Thank you,
prefer.
that'd be most kind on both counts.
if we could impose a little further, would you be able to furnish us with the names of the character witnesses you mentioned?
Certainly. The people who are prepared to testify include, but are not limited to, the local minister and the local doctor.
And the victim, one Mr. Mccall, was he local as well?
He was.
What did he do? What was his part in the community?
Let me check.
Chris seems to be being eaten by pixels.
Oh no!
I assume that's what happens in the Isle of Wight. I've never been.
He looks okay on mine, however, there is a bit of a delay between his audio and his video.
Still had action.
They're probably changing over the battery to the other.
Ah.
There's just one big one, and they got to swap it over every now and again. I would like to try and Mr. Sinclair, do you think perhaps that you're being very circumspect, which I'm sure anyone related to the matter would appreciate. I thought perhaps that maybe you could give us your personal opinion on the McLeod boy. I know there are witnesses and character testaments to the boy about whether he could do it or not, but I'd maybe like to hear about your own personal opinions, and I can roll a charm is necessary.
Certainly. Give me. Oh, Kath has stepped away. So yes, I will do.
No, I'm
Basically in the room.
Ah,
within
cool.
hearing distance. It's
Cool.
a very small flat.
I will answer. That's fine. Yeah. I will answer that first. So, Gene McCall. Sorry, not
McLeod,
Gene McCall.
the boy, the
Sorry. So first, the information about McCall, and then I'll do
oh sorry,
McLeod.
I
Sorry.
I totally missed that
Ladies
as well.
first.
Donald McCall is his full name. He was a local who worked odd jobs. He sometimes worked for farmers during harvest season or lambing season, and got by on odd jobs. He was married to Jean McCall.
So he was married, as in life, or used to be married to?
Oh, they were not divorced when he was married. When he was alive, he was married to Jean McCall. She is now his widow. It is not possible to divorce some. Well, not in Scotland anyway. Hard to divorce someone. He will tell you that his impression was that Don McCall was relatively well liked. Their investigation did not turn up people who would have harboured enough ill will against him to have murdered him. The exception to that is that he did hear rumours that he beat his wife. He looks a little embarrassed to say that, but you think he's trying to be frank with you, and he's speaking in a very frank tone. To answer a few other questions, sorry, there was Reverend McCallan is the name of the local minister. And I can't see the name for the local doctor. Dr. McBride is the village doctor.
Did you say
Sorry, let me just quickly answer now Bill's question. Remind me of your question, Bill.
I was asking him if he could tell me his honest opinion about the McLeod boy. He was being very, very PC, and I was
Okay.
wondering if I might be able to charm him into giving us his honest opinion of the only person without an alibi.
The McLeod boy, he admits that he doesn't know him well. He didn't know any of these people before this investigation.
Yeah.
He seems a little simple.
Mm-hmm.
He has no other real opinion, which is why he is relying on these character witnesses that he believes.
Sure. Thank you.
You say that he's suspect mostly because he's the only one who's unaccountable. Is the village very community-minded, or just very,
Or just very what, sorry?
or just very small? Surely, at any given time, most people are not necessarily anywhere with two witnesses of good character to account for their whereabouts.
At the time of the murder, every member of the village was in the Strathmore Hotel for the proprietor and owner's 50th birthday party. The only person who was not there is McLeod.
And do you have a particular reason to discount the crime having been committed from someone out of town?
The village is remote enough that someone would have had to travel a long way in and out without being seen, and for the express purpose of meeting Mccall and there is no evidence that any such thing happened or that Mccall could have been relied upon to be there at that time.
You know what those little country places are like, Mr. Rummage. As a visitor comes by and they're talking about it 6 months later.
Indeed, that is certainly true in your case, Miss.
Giggles impishly.
Oh, so just to clear it in my head, there were 2 people not at the party, McLeod and Mccall. It's just one of them is now dead.
That is correct, yes.
Was there any good reason that they were not attending the party when everyone else was invited, or did they just not turn up?
McCall was known or suspected to be a poacher, and most people believed that that is what he was doing at the time. McLeod should have been working at the time, watching over one of the flocks of the local farmers.
Who's a poacher, you say?
Suspected.
Suspected poacher. So I dare say that stands dead down the local, but probably less so with any local landowners. Who are the notable notable landowners around here that might have reason to see a poacher come to a sticky end?
So you would be correct in that would be motive. However, the main landowner, Farmer McIntyre, who is the farmer who MacLeod should have been working for at the time, and most of the other farmers within any kind of reasonable range were all at the party.
They could have still paid someone. Wouldn't necessarily do their own dirty work.
It is possible that Farmer McIntyre paid MacLeod to commit this murder. However, MacLeod is not claiming that, and we have no evidence that happened.
He could be covering for someone, or it could be entirely barking up the wrong tree.
MacLeod could be covering for someone. MacLeod claims innocence, so he's not covering for someone because he's not claiming to have done it.
What can you tell us about this supposed haunted house, the family's house? And I believe this is what Cloud Boy is claiming as his defense.
He is, as I said, he's a little simple.
Still, it would be interesting to hear what he had to say. Is he in custody at the moment?
Yes, he's here in custody. You are welcome to talk to him. I won't entertain such ideas.
Thank you kindly. We'd appreciate that at some later point.
Absolutely. Let me escort you. And he stands up and shows you down the hall. He takes.
I say, Sinclair, one more thing.
Yes. Oh, you've frozen, I think, Nick.
Uh-oh.
Hello?
I think you're back. Say that all again.
What's the general sense around here of the was it McMorn family that used to be the owners of that estate?
Yes, that's correct.
How are they seen around here?
They aren't thought of much anymore. It's been a long time since they occupied or lived here, occupied that house. They died off in the early 1800s. I don't really know much about them, and it wasn't aligned with this. Sorry?
And the house has lain empty since?
Correct. I believe that the
How certain are we that the house has laid empty since? Big abandoned house, and especially in country where there's poaching.
It's going to be in
I mean, it seems
after 100 years. I wouldn't want to move in there.
the locals believe it to have been abandoned, and some of the more imaginative members of the community believe that the McLeods have abandoned treasure and fortune in the house. And we believe that this is what Mccall was searching for at the time, and that's why he was at the house. He was searching for any wealth that they may have left behind. I have no reason to suspect that the house has not been abandoned for the last 100 years. I find it hard to believe that these rumors of valuable things still being there would have arisen if there was any kind of activity at the house.
My only thought is that, well, given the potential use for underhanded dealings in an abandoned property like that, I mean, I've encountered a fair few instances in my time of local legends of hauntings used to cover up, say, smuggling on the Cornish and Devon coast. Poaching I've come across in Lincolnshire and Nottinghamshire. It's not an uncommon use of these local superstitions. So it may be worth investigating the property a bit more in depth if we have the time.
Certainly, you are welcome to go and look around the property. We have no reason to suspect that the property was being used for those purposes. As I say, Strathmorn is not a hub or on the road to anywhere. It is not impossible that that's the case. I think it would be unlikely, and again, we have no evidence to suggest that that's the case.
Do you know who owns
Mr.
the property nowadays?
I don't know. You would have to check.
Mr. Sinclair, do you think we would, were we to force an entrance to the property, do you think there would be any legal things that might come a cropper? Should we try and find out? Because if it's been abandoned, are the doors just going to wing open, or should we try and find someone with a key?
He has a bit of a wry smile and then looks you like dead in the eyes and says, "You should not try to gain access to private land without the permission of the landowner."
But of course.
But you don't know who the owner is.
Come on.
Those two statements are both correct.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your time, Inspector Sinclair.
You're very welcome. I would appreciate if you uncover anything, you bringing it to me before the press.
But of course.
I should also mention actually, part of the condition of your hiring by the society, blah blah blah, the National Laboratory for Psychical Research,
Yeah.
Harry.
is
Harry.
that they are the owner of anything you uncover, and you are not to go to press with anything that you find.
But the police are different, so.
You can tell other people that they own the information that you find.
Yeah.
So I guess that was kind of where I.
The press, they can misconstrue things so badly.
All a bit too well.
The
I
inspector
guess
agrees
that's
with
where
you.
I was trying to go with asking Mr. Sinclair about entering the property. Is that does not our affiliation with the National Laboratory gain us access to the?
Legally, it is private property.
Right. Sweet.
We don't want to waste valuable police time.
He
Did you want to go speak to the McLeod boy?
Yeah, at the moment you are standing in the corridor on the way to speak to McLeod.
It seems like a good idea since we're here. See what happened. He seems to have been intimately involved with it.
The inspector will lead you down to. He introduces you to a Sergeant Lorimer, who is the policeman on guard. And Sergeant Lorimer is maybe in his mid-30s. Quite close-cut hair, clean-shaven, well-dressed, in uniform. And Inspector says, "I will leave you in the capable hands of my sergeant. Please do not hesitate to reach out if you have any more questions or indeed information."
Thank you very much for your time, Inspector.
And leaves you. Sergeant Lorimer leads you into, well, to the outside of a cell. Inside is McLeod. He is a quite slightly built man in his early 20s. He is kind of curled up on the cot that's in the cell.
Just for reference, he's slightly built, so not massively physically tough or anything.
Correct.
Cool.
At this point, yeah, Nick will take 5 minutes for a loo break, and if people want top ups and stuff, and come back in a second once I find the "be right back" sign for the stream. There we go. Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll take 5. We'll be back at 8:20. Cheers, guys.
Cool.
Just to note, Adam, I'd probably would want to ask Inspector Sinclair while the others are talking to
McLeod.
I'd like to ask him more questions about the crime scene, or who the first onto said crime scene.
Cool. All right. Yes, we'll deal with that in 5 minutes.
Cool.
Cool. Cheers. Okay.
Shot at any point, we can still hear. This is a very small
It's pretty hard not to hear in this flat.
Cool. Got you. Cool. Right. What were we doing? Bill, you were talking to the investigator in the corridor still. Is that correct? What did you want to ask?
Well, yes. After he showed Miss Ridley and Mr. Rummage and Stanley. I'm going to keep saying everyone's names until I know that I can remember them. I'd like to pull him aside and ask him either ask him more about the crime scene or ask him who was first onto the crime scene, so that I might be able to talk to them at a later date.
The body was discovered by a group of villagers. It was outside the manor, and they were walking past.
Yes. Who was the first? Perhaps better to ask would be who was first onto the scene in an official capacity, rather than simply the discoverers of a gruesome murder.
Sure. The sergeant, Lorimer, narrowly beat
Sorry,
me to the punch.
I missed that.
Sergeant Lorimer, who's currently on duty, in the cells, was narrowly first on. Narrowly beat myself.
Excellent. I think I does he need to be present while my colleagues speak to Mr. McLeod, or do you think I might be able to pull him aside and ask him some questions about the crime scene?
The sergeant.
Yes, Sergeant Lorimer, the one who was there first.
Sure. He's on duty, so he won't leave that area. But as long as he's like, you could speak to him while the others are speaking to McLeod if you like, but it'll need to be in that room which has the cells in.
Yes, that's fine as long as you know that's as long as that's agreeable. He doesn't need to put to monitoring the prisoner.
No, he's monitoring that nothing untoward is happening and the prisoner is staying safe. So as long as he can see that no attempts are being made to break the prisoner out, and the prisoner is fine and safe and healthy, then that's fine.
Marvelous.
What's
Yes,
everyone else
so
doing?
then I will probably
Sorry, go on. No, we've lost you, I think.
into, and I imagine speaking to Mr. McLeod. So good to cut to them, maybe.
Yes, cool. All right, sounds good. Is everyone else going in to speak to Mr. McLeod?
Yeah.
Cool. Yes, he is a slightly built young man who is currently curled up on the cot.
How old roughly?
Probably early 20s, maybe.
Does he seem to be awake?
He is awake, yes. When you come in, and the inspector, getting my eyes mixed up. The inspector introduces you to the sergeant. He will look up, and then look away, so you know he's awake.
Hi, Mr. McLeod. Jamie?
Hi. Hello.
Hi. I was wondering if we could just come in and sit and have a chat with you for a moment.
The sergeant won't let you into the cell, but you can sit outside the cell and talk to him.
Ah, okay. So yeah, are there chairs on the other side of the, like on our side of the?
Yeah, you can drag something
The
over.
bar.
That's fine.
Okay. So I'll kind of
We'll
sit
fetch a
down,
chair,
kind of.
Miss Ridley, and stand behind.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll kind of get a chair and I'll sort of sit and kind of lean forward on my knees like that. So I was hoping if you could just walk us through what happened the other night. With...
It's only polite to introduce ourselves.
Oh yes, sorry. Where are my manners?
So I'm Phoebe, Miss Phoebe Ridley, and my companions. Turn to you. Blanked on your name out of character.
Hi. My name's Stanley Chevenix Norton. Please do call me Stanley. It's we're all friends here.
We've been sent down from London to investigate what's been going on up here. You seem to have got yourself tangled up in some nasty business.
Well, it's a pleasure to meet you all. I do hope you can get to the bottom of this and clear my name.
So do we. So would we be able to ask you some questions on what happened, so we can try and get this matter resolved?
Of course.
So I will defer to Mr. Chevenix Norton. He started asking questions.
I'm sorry, Sergeant Lorimer. Would it be? I hate to be a bother, but would it be possible to get a few cups of tea? Thank you. It's so much obliged to you.
You're trying to get him out of the room.
I'm more just trying to create a friendly atmosphere.
If you're not trying to get him out of the room, he will say that certainly there is a kettle down the kitchen, and you are welcome to go and make yourself a cup of tea. If you want to get him to go and make you one, it'll be a charm check.
I will attend to tea. Head down there, make brews for
Thank
everyone.
you, Mr. Rummage.
Thank you, Rummage. You're a brick.
Including the sergeant and Mr. McLeod. Mr. McLeod might get a shot of nerve tonic in his.
If you offer one to the sergeant will thank you and says he takes his tea with milk and 3 sugars. McLeod, are you spiking McLeod's drink?
Just with alcohol.
I mean,
Not-
yeah, but still spiking it. Okay, cool.
Sneaking in a little tot of rum.
Yeah, cool.
Or whatever. Possibly mint julep, I'm not sure.
Oh boy. McLeod doesn't really drink tea, so he probably won't notice anyway. Like he'll just assume that's how it's meant. That's how it tastes.
I thought you were trying to be nice. Now you're trying to be for that image.
Just got to lubricate the poacher.
Yeah, that's it, that's
McLeod isn't the poacher. It was Mccall. Who was?
What's it like a euphemism where you make it sound
McLeod's the shepherd.
worse?
Just
Anti-euphemism.
just got to lubricate odd job. That's even worse.
He as you come back, he accepts his tea and takes a sip and kind of like obviously doesn't like it very much, but
Just
continues
take a
to
sip of mine and give him a smile.
he continues to sip at it like almost out of politeness, and because he's probably sat in that cell for probably several days now and is real bored and has nothing else to do.
It's probably at this point I come back in as well and
Mhm.
start to talk to Lauren about the crime scene. But obviously we can't do that at the same time. So I guess we'll
Cool.
do that
Yeah,
now.
you can engage Lorimer in conversation as well. Cool. Is
So
there anything
just,
else?
just for the record, so is that conversation happening simultaneously? So Lorimer's attention is divided.
Yes. If
Okay,
that's
good to
how
know.
Bill you want to do that. Yes.
Not intentionally, but he can't leave the cell, and I'd like to know more about the crime scene. So it's not
Yeah.
intentionally. I'm not trying to divert his attention, but I
Sure.
assume he would be a little less.
Yeah. That's fine. Cool. McLeod is sipping his boozy tea.
Mr. Stephanie Nixon, I think you wanted to ask a question. I'm sorry I interrupted you. Most rude of me.
Not to worry, not to worry. Yes. So, Jamie, if I may call you Jamie,
Please, sir.
I was just hoping if you could just talk me through what happened that night.
Well, I'm I'm really sorry that I ever went to that awful house. I was. They say there's treasure in there, you know. And I've been struggling recently, and so I went to go and try and see if I could find my fortune. Um, I know they say there's ghosts there, and the uh, uh the Reverend told me not to go. But the but I've been struggling, you know, and they say there's treasure there. But I couldn't find anything. I couldn't. There was nothing there. It's all old and it's all broken down and it's not a very nice place. But by the time I was done looking, it was dark. And well, Lord knows it's nicer than my house. So I slept the night. I went to go to sleep. The wind was ferocious. I was glad that I was tucked away. And managed to fashion myself something quite warm. The but I didn't hurt that man. I didn't do anything. It must have been the ghosts. It was the devil's work, I tell you.
So you say it was a windy night.
That's right. Yes, the devil must have stirred up all those ghosts as I was searching through the house.
So did you go to sleep?
That's right, miss.
And what woke you up?
I I woke up in the morning and I went home.
So you slept through the whole night there,
That's right,
Had
sir.
you been there before?
I hadn't. No. I was. They say there's ghosts, and I wanted to stay away. I'm a good Christian man, you understand, and I didn't want none of that business. But it's just been so hard recently, struggling to find work.
How did you hear about the? How did you hear about the McMorn treasure?
Well, everyone round here knows that the McMorns, when they left treasure up there. Ask any lad in the village.
Have people been talking about it a lot recently, or is it just something that people know?
No more so than usual. You just you grow up and you know that the old house is haunted and that there is treasure there.
So you didn't see anything of Mr. McCall at all?
That's right, miss. I never saw him. I never went near him. I never did nothing to him. Wouldn't hurt a
Did you
soul.
know him?
I mean, he lived in the village, and I knew of him. We weren't friends. We didn't have very much reason to talk to each other. We may have worked the odd job together, but we didn't spend any amount of time together.
And all these stories about it being haunted, did you actually see anything strange there? Hear anything?
Well, it was mighty windy, and you know what those old houses are like. Now I'm a good Christian man, and I don't allow the devil into my heart. But some of the noises that a old house makes when it's windy. But it was just the wind. I'm sure. The ghosts luckily left me alone. And just well, they hurt Mr. McCall, didn't they?
And you didn't see any people at all?
I mean, it's an abandoned old house. There's never anyone up there.
If I may
You
inquire,
mentioned that.
Go on, Rich. Sorry.
if I may inquire, how well acquainted were you with Mr. McCall?
I'd seen him around, and I knew of him. We worked the odd job together. Along like a couple of years ago, and then maybe a couple of years before that, but not like together, just on the same farm in different fields. I wouldn't have claimed him to be a friend or an acquaintance. Nick, go on. You were going to ask something. Sorry,
What was I
Stanley.
gonna ask? Oh yes. You mentioned that that Reverend McCallan had tried to dissuade you from going up to the house. Is that right?
That's right, sir.
You
Yes.
knew you intended to.
Yes. Well, I'd talked to he's my minister, and so I had talked to him about how hard things have been getting, and about how what I might do about that, and I'd said that I was thinking about it, and he had dissuaded me. Yes.
You've mentioned a few times now that you're a man of faith.
Correct. Yes.
How do you say your dealings have been with the Reverend?
How do you mean, sir?
How do you get on with him? Is he a good minister to the community?
Oh yes. I abide by his teachings. And his word is the word of God.
How do you feel about him personally?
I don't understand what you mean, sir.
As a man, is he? Do you believe him to be? I say I don't. No, not to worry, not to worry. We've heard mention also of the village doctor, Dr. McBride, was it?
That's the name of the doctor, sir. Yes.
Are you familiar with him? Have you?
I've
He's
seen
here
him.
on.
I've seen him from time to time when I've needed to. Again, he's a doctor, so I wouldn't presume to socialize with the man.
Very well.
You said that people have always talked about the place being haunted. What sort of stories were told about the place? We've heard that there's rumoured to be a treasure and it's rumoured to be haunted. Was there anything more specific than that?
Well, the stories that you hear growing up, Miss, are just that it's haunted and that it's that ghosts live there now. The Reverend says it is a house of Satan. Um, I guess that's why what attracts the ghosts, the souls of the lost.
Interesting to have a word with him later.
I wonder if we could impose on you to be a little more specific in terms of activities at the house that night. If we're going to examine the scene to exonerate you, it'd be good to know exactly where you went, exactly what you looked into there.
I searched as much of the house as I could. Parts of it are in disrepair, but I tried to find the treasure, and in doing so, I was looking behind bookcases and moving furniture, and there's not a lot there that the elements have left in very good condition.
Were any parts of the house inaccessible to you? Were you able to find your way past all obstacles?
I didn't encounter anything that I couldn't get past and wanted to. Like I didn't break any windows or break any doors or anything like that. I didn't need to.
So, you've said on a few occasions now that it was known that the house was haunted, and yet you felt comfortable enough to spend the night there.
Desperate
You
enough.
Are you afraid of ghosts?
Well, yes, sir. Of course. I am now. I'd spent most of the afternoon and evening searching the house, and there had been nothing untoward. I didn't believe the I thought it was children's stories before I went, but now I know better.
How did the house feel when you were in it? When you
Uh,
walked through the door, how did it make you feel?
the house was grand in its way, I guess. I'd never been inside a building intended for one family to live in that had ever been so big. That main room that you walk into is well, it's bigger than my house. Um, and so there was I guess an awe of what had come before. But also a sadness that this had fallen into such disrepair. Take a psychology roll for me.
Oh, 41, which is, I think, just one over my psychology.
No!
So I might actually burn a luck to bring that down to 4.
Yeah.
Burning it early, going in big.
I'll Yeah, I'll burn 1 luck.
Cool. He is, now that he's talking to you, he's quite articulate. The inspector described him as a little bit simple, but that's not the vibe that you're getting at all. He's obviously lived his whole life in this small Scottish village, and so you wouldn't describe him as educated, but he's switched on and he's there.
Intuitive.
Yeah. Like he can describe his feelings about an old abandoned old house in those kind of terms to you, which is not something that you would describe as being capable of by someone who was simple.
Jamie, do you like being a shepherd?
Well, sir, I would say that it's a living, but at the moment it hasn't been. But it's an honest work and it's good work.
So times have been hard recently, then.
Yes, the last winter was very tough. There wasn't much work going. It was a cold winter. There wasn't a lot of work going. And
Miss
now
Ridley?
during our peak season, like lambing will be happening soon, and I'm locked in here and I can't work. And it's been almost a week and a half now of wages that I haven't been able to earn.
We'll try and get things sorted out as quickly as possible for you.
Miss, I would be forever indebted to you if you were able to clear my name.
Mr. McLeod, I confess I am curious as to whether there was anything specific that prompted you that particular day to investigate the Strathmore house. I presume that others had previously attempted to find the legendary treasure. Was there anything made you believe that this would be the day that your luck would be in? Attempting to persuade him to divulge if he's holding anything back.
Sure. I guess that would be a charm check.
Persuade?
Persuade? Yeah,
If there's
persuade.
any sheet, a persuade skill and no charm.
Yeah, no, take
Yeah.
persuade.
I'm old and wrinkly. Well, middle-aged and slightly wrinkly.
So
Put
your character.
a persuade check would be more of a you need to tell us so that we can help you. Would be more if to take that kind of text.
Roll 2.
Okay, well it's fine. Doesn't matter. You can roll on anything. You'll pass then. Fine.
Hypnotise him.
That's true.
He
It's not like
he
Only good roll I ever get.
he seems very genuine when he tells you that he never put much stock in either the ghost stories or the treasure, and it's just sheer desperation and not knowing how else he can survive and earn a living that drove him to investigate and take a chance on it.
Did anyone else know you were going that day? Did you tell anyone, or did anyone meet you when you were walking there?
Not specifically, miss. I had, as I say, I'd spoken to the Reverend about going to look, but I hadn't mentioned that I was going that day. I didn't know when I woke up that morning that that's what I was going to do.
If you guys would like a think, could I possibly pop into my
Yes.
conversation
No.
and-
Sorry. Let's switch over. Sorry.
I'm done.
Cool. I should have called that a little bit
No,
earlier. You're right.
no, that's all right. There was a good flow going, but it seemed like there was a natural break there.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. No. You're right. Let's switch back. You were talking to
Yeah.
the sergeant, a Sergeant Lorimer.
Yes. So he's just been handed a cup of tea.
Cup of tea.
Yes. Sergeant, William Thatcher, call me Bill, please. The inspector said that you were the first onto the scene of the crime in an official capacity.
That's right, sir. Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, fantastic. I'm a laboratory assistant mainly, so I was wondering if perhaps you could tell me more in detail about the crimes. This is where I might end up asking some questions that might not be part of 1920 CSI.
I will. I
So,
will.
if
I will flag if that's like not a thing. That's cool.
1920
Sure.
CSI.
Yeah.
But his watch stopped at a particular time. No, well, we're out of luck then.
I will. I will
we're
tell.
all out of luck.
I will tell you now that basically any kind of level of investigative evidence is like not present. So any kind of analysis of how they were attacked as to the competency of the attacker is like not a thing. You'd barely
Yeah,
have,
I'm assuming like blood
Yeah.
spatters and direction aren't a thing.
not really.
Like that's yeah. So mainly, I guess then in which case, I would ask what if you could perhaps describe the wounds to me, whether they looked like they perhaps might be blunt or slashing or puncturing, or how do you think the Mr. McCall met his demise?
Honestly, sir, I'd really rather not say. I don't want to further enrage the ghosts and the spirits that live in that house by talking about them, or inviting them into this place in any way.
Well, in which case, I'd try and convince him. Please, Sergeant. We are very far away from Strathmore. We're in civilized village. You're clearly all God-fearing people. You even have a train station, which is obviously how we got here. So I do believe we are safe from ghosts and other such ghoulies of the night. If you want me to make a charm roll or something.
I want you to make either firstly, make a psychology or a spot hidden check.
Oh, let's do spot hidden. I'm good at that.
I assume spot hidden was for physical searches. Okay, we'll rely on that a lot more in future.
It is for physical searches, yes.
Oh,
Art roll. A D100, right?
Correct, yes. Oh, was that in the chat?
Oh, nice. No, it was me. I got a 22.
Made a
And my
noise.
spot hidden is 60. I'm killing it.
of course,
Nice.
if you use the dice tray in the...
Oh, it was in the dice tray in the thing in the server. Yes, cool.
Yes.
All right. Let me
'Cause
just
that's the only
quickly.
place where the dice tray is, right?
Yes, that's fine. Let me quickly mute that so that the boop 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 Discord thing isn't coming through on the chat. Okay, cool. Yes, that's fine. What did you get? Sorry.
I got a 22. My spot hidden is a 60. I'm killing it.
Cool. And that's on your spot hidden, yeah?
Yeah.
Sergeant Lorimer, you spot has several of the key indicators of quite a heavy drinker.
Sorry, quite a what?
Heavy drinker.
Sure. Okay. Shaky hands, red nose, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Put the nerve tonic in the wrong tea.
I was like, when you did it, I was like, it's the wrong one. You've spiked the guy who barely drinks tea and barely drinks alcohol, and you've got the raging alcoholic who takes 3 sugars in his tea. You're like stood right there.
You get to spend 2 months and Dave's not used to alcohol. He's not used to tolerance.
Well, yes. Then in you want me to make the psychology as well? You asked me to make one roll, and then I assumed you were going to ask me to make
So
another.
either the psychology or the spot hidden would have given you that information through
Okay.
slightly different routes.
So spot hidden, give me that information, and then what does he say? Because obviously I was like, surely we're in a civilized society.
So he's still pretty reluctant to talk much about it.
Pretty resistant. Yeah. Okay. So I. Oh, luckily, Mr. Rummage did say that he's going to keep Miss Ridley's tonic on him. So I think I might sort of lean in a little bit closer to Sergeant Lorimer and be like, Sergeant, my dear man, do you think perhaps a little something to calm your nerves might perhaps make you a little more talkative?
He will.
In fact, let me go ahead and so yeah, I sort of say that and just don't really pause long enough for him to say anything.
Sure.
And then sidle over to Mr. Rummage and Ms. Ridley, and sort of, while one of them aren't talking to McLeod, suggest that I might borrow some reviving tonic for the sergeant.
You just reach into Mr. Ridley's inside pocket. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just while they're having this sensitive conversation with this traumatized young man, you just reach into his pocket and pull out a hip flask and walk away. Cool.
That's I'd like, well, yeah. While one of them aren't speaking to Mr. McLeod, I'd sort of pull perhaps Mr. Rummage aside and inquire if I might borrow some tonic for the sergeant.
We'll furnish you with a suitably discreet bottle.
Marvelous.
Cool.
So noticing, so yes, I'd take that over, noticing that the sergeant's tea is already completely empty. A bit, so I just sort of lean over, covertly blocking the doorway in case the inspector be poking his head in, and tot up his tea mug with a little of whatever is in the flask.
Cool. What is in the flask, Mr. Rummage?
Well, what does Miss Ridley drink?
Doesn't Miss Ridley drink? Something fairly good quality.
Gin?
Yeah, probably.
A good gin.
Gin would be the classic
No,
1920s
dry
ladies
gin
drink.
with
Yeah.
herbal aroma.
Lovely.
The sergeant will knock that back and then pull quite a disgusted face and say, What is this? You obviously are from down south. We don't drink this bath swill up here.
I was offering him grudging respect from the way he knocked it back, but now that's gone out of the window. If I even saw.
Well, my dear sergeant, I was what's the word? I had it on good authority that this was a reviving tonic. I thought it might make you feel a little better.
There's only one kind of reviving tonic around here, and that's proper Highland whiskey.
So discretion just goes out the window.
Yeah, this sergeant's a loose cannon. What a loose unit. All right. I mean, does he seem in any way more inclined to talk, or has the gin offended him so much he seems perhaps a little bit more tight-lipped now?
Yeah. If anything, he seems less inclined to talk to you.
It's probably barely made a dent, really.
Waste of good
Yeah.
gin.
Waste of good gin. In which case, I will probably end my conversation with Sergeant Lorimer, pass Mr. Rummage the hip flask of a rather nice smelling gin. I say to him myself. And then I might try and go back to the inspector and press him for more information about the body instead.
You can do so. Sorry, Kath, that didn't come through.
Sorry, didn't he offer us a document from the coroners and an introductory letter as well? About the
Yes, he did. He said that he didn't want to just like relate the coroner's findings to you, but they're all in this document. So if you want, you can flick through that document.
Ah, okay. Then yes, I will peruse that while they finish questioning Mccall.
Sure. So the description of the body is is very clinical, but describes something quite horrific. The arms were dislocated. The head was twisted off, and the body had
Clean off.
Clean off. Well, not clean, twisted,
Right. I was about. Well, I mean, like decapitated.
but removed. Yes,
Yeah, decapitated via twisting.
yes.
Popped off his sprue.
Sorry.
Popped off his sprue.
Yeah, exactly. And there were numerous cuts all over the rest of the body. The coroner likens it to the damage caused by a claymore mine.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, sorry. I misread that. They don't exist yet. As if someone had attacked him with a claymore, the sword, because we're in Scotland. You idiot,
mine.
Adam. Ugh.
I know with a sword.
I was just rewriting all of Scottish history in my head.
It's like they just had
William Wallace is a suicide bomber.
just had anti-personnel mines in the mid 1800s. Who doesn't? Yes. Awful cuts, numerous cuts all over his body.
I guess I look further in the report. I guess the report probably doesn't go into debris around the body, does it?
No, it focuses nearly
Whether there was
exclusively.
glass, they might have fallen out of a window or something.
No, there's nothing like that detailed in there. Take me a
It's
medicine.
purely the body.
Yeah. Take me a
Also,
medicine
question.
roll.
I also have a question for when I inevitably read this a bit later on.
Yeah.
Is there any report about any weapon being discovered, or I don't know if it would be on that anyway, but
I'll say there's a bit of the police report included as well in that he's handed over, and there was no weapon found or no obvious implement.
Also, where was the head in relation to the body?
It was like next to the body. It wasn't
Oh,
far
okay.
away.
It didn't look like it had been placed.
So
Correct.
I don't have any medicine. What happens when I need to roll on something?
So on your character sheet, it should have where are the character sheets? It should have a number in brackets. So
it
it
says
should
0.1%.
yes. So that is your base medicine roll. So if
Yeah,
you would
so
like,
I'm
you
assuming
can
my
roll.
base medicine. I need to roll a 1.
I tell you, you've got biology. Roll biology.
Oh yeah, nice. That's
Roll
good.
biology. Oh, I've run out of beer. Excuse me. This game, by the way, is sponsored by Dark Star Brewery.
send me a note.
If Darkstar, if you'd like to sponsor this stream, then send me some beer.
Maybe if I
Like
oh, I can
sponsor
send
this
it as
stream
private
of beer down Adam's throat.
message. Oh no!
Sponsor this
that
stream.
that was a 100, which I can only describe as a terrible, terrible fail.
That is what we describe as a bad one.
You look
So-
so closely at the notes that you give yourself a paper cut on the eye.
Yeah, directly across the eye.
Definitely ate the report.
I'm good at biology as well. I'm livid.
I get absolutely mixed up between 6th edition Call of Cthulhu, 7th edition Call of Cthulhu, and Delta Green as to how the critical successes and critical failures work, but I'm pretty sure that's a critical fail. It is what it is. You can't infer any additional information from that report.
Cool. Okay, sure. I'm glad I didn't get a paper cut. They suck.
No, it's not like some editions of
Okay,
Dungeons and
aye.
Dragons where like a critical fail and you just like accidentally stab yourself. There's none of that here.
And a weapon across the room.
Yeah.
You don't just suddenly unknow something that you just
No,
just
you
read.
don't have a
Just all
brain
brain
hemorrhage as a
just
result.
thinking
Yeah.
too hard.
Yeah.
You now can't control the left side of your body. Enjoy.
Good luck with the rest of the mission, you guys. The rest of you, if you want, can look through that.
I'm sure I will at some point.
Yeah, if you want to make a medicine or a biology roll now, just to
But
get that
natural's not
information now, then you like.
different. I might get a 1 for my medicine roll. I don't think I've got any medicine anyway. Nope, I still don't have any medicine. I don't think it's worth it.
Cool. All right. Is there anything else you'd like to do at the police station?
Get the introductory letter to the coroner he offered us if he's already given it to us.
He has given you that, yeah. It's just a piece of letter-headed paper that says, "Doctor, this is the people in possession of this are blah 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 blah." Yeah,
Does the police station have a telephone installed?
it will do. Yes.
Just making a note of that in case we need it at any point.
Yeah, yeah.
What
It'll
time-
be.
How long have we been in there?
This has probably taken you. It's taken us an hour, so maybe a little bit longer than that.
Yeah. And we arrived, what, late afternoon?
You arrived into town early afternoon. You organised a car. Like it's probably late afternoon by now.
So,
Um,
I believe we have 2 potential witnesses to speak to and was the scene of crime to visit.
Who are you counting as the witness? The ones that found the body?
I was.
well, if I'm not mistaken, they're all over in Strathmore and we're still in Inverness.
Who were you counting?
Minister McCallan, Reverend McCallan, and Dr. McBride. If we feel that their testimony would be of any use to us.
I would be very interested in the minister. I also noticed that he was the only person who knew that Thingamabob McLeod was interested in the building.
They are both in Stanmore.
How far away?
Would I
was
suggest
driving?
Stanmore is about 45 minutes to an hour drive.
Probably not worth going there tonight.
No, I suggest not. I would suggest perhaps seeing if the coroner is still open and we can go and introduce ourselves to the coroner, perhaps speak to him, or perhaps I might ask the inspector what time the library closes in Inverness.
The museum and library is probably already closed, or at least very close to. Similarly, the coroner will have closed shop by now.
Perhaps it would be best to adjourn the evening.
Tomorrow is
Yes,
a
I
long day.
suggest the pub.
To the Temperance Inn, I'm sure.
Yes, so I hear.
So there is a. Go on, sorry.
Until they have some very nice food at the hotel, you can at least have a good dinner.
What are your plans for the evening?
Well, I don't know about my fine colleagues, but I would like to eat, drink, and chat about our findings in general, and that
I'm
sort of
totally up
thing.
for that.
Hmm.
Oh,
If there's a if there's a spare moment, I'd probably try and find the kind of oldest and most shepherdly looking of people propping up the bar, and see if I can just pump them for any like local folk songs or anything for my ongoing work.
Sure. So all of you take me a luck check.
What?
Luck check.
Ooh, 12.
No,
As well. Nope.
the dice mock us.
Who did anyone succeed? Nick did.
Yep, I got a 12
Cool.
on the 39.
Bollocks. No. Fail.
Cool. So you are all in the pub in the evening, having had a nice meal at the hotel is the word. Nick, you manage to persuade some of the local old boys to play a few tunes. You suspect that that's not an irregular occurrence for them to do that anyway, and perhaps once everyone got a bit drunk later on, they almost were planning to do some songs, so they are quite easily persuaded.
Good.
Whilst you are all enjoying the evening, Nick, you notice a now off-duty Sergeant Lorimer enter the pub and sit at the bar.
Okay. Would Bill
I
have
definitely
had a
mentioned
chance to mention?
Lorimer's- Yeah, I think over dinner I would have passed over anything I discovered about Sergeant Lorimer and his propensity for proper Highland whiskey.
And I would have caught you up on what we discussed as well. So
Yeah.
there we are, all caught up now.
So yes, as I see him come in, I'll just lean forward and say, "Don't look now, but our man Lorimer's just come in.
Mhm.
I reckon in maybe 2 or 3 glasses time, we might be able to get some interesting chat out of him."
Keep the weather eye open.
Well, I think I may well have offended him with the gin, so you might have a better job of it, Stanley. I'll leave this one to you.
Yes, I've been hoping to explore a bit of the local whiskies. Assuming we're able to get it here, we're going to need to start slipping a shifty shilling over the bar.
Maybe with a bit of discretion.
Pop it under a handkerchief and
Just not a snotty handkerchief.
What are you trying to do?
the very thought, Miss Ridley.
What exactly is it you're trying to do, and how are you trying to do it?
I think so. I'm I'm going to wait until he's a few drinks in.
Mhm.
And then yeah, I'll kind of keep an eye on how he goes about ordering his whiskey. Like if there's a particular kind of etiquette to ordering whiskey in this dry town. And yeah, when he's just at the tail end of maybe his third, I'll pop up to the bar and kind of lean on it next to him and try and order a drink. Just try and catch the landlord's eye.
Sure. So he is ordering quite a cheap whiskey. It's not like the cheapest, but pretty cheap.
He
And
scoffed at your nice gin. How very dare he?
um,
No taste at all.
he is drinking it. So he has it in a short glass and is like he's not doing shots or anything. So he is sipping it, but he's getting through them pretty quickly. He will not notice you immediately at first. He's not keeping to himself, but he's not really like engaging with much. Like he's drinking and focusing on that.
Okay. So yeah, I'll try and catch the barman's eye.
He can.
Okay, so he comes over and hello. Yes, sorry. I was wondering if I might inquire about your whiskey select. It's my first time in Inverness, and I thought it'd be rude not to.
Sure. You see the barman immediately kind of slip into what you would recognize as these are tourists, and I need to impress upon them how great our country and our town, our city. No, it is a town. Our town and this area is, and how wonderful everything is, and also I can fleece them. Um, and so he starts taking you through a lot of the local distilleries, and like letting you sniff the bottles of some local stuff. He's not mentioning the prices of any of this, but he does enter a patter of like working through the local distilleries. That sounds like he goes through it semi-regularly.
I can't remember how money works in Call.
So you, broadly speaking, won't worry too much about like a couple of drinks. If you want a larger expense, you will have to leverage your assets, and so that will reduce your credit rating. And
Okay.
sometimes you roll in your credit
But in
rating,
terms
but
of like ready cash, like we've got London money.
yeah, you've got London money, and this is Outland Scotland, like Highland Scotland. So it's not the difference.
So I'll definitely kind of make a like very much kind of play into his little presentation that he's giving me and take a great interest in sniffing the bottles and
Sure.
yes, that.
The difference probably isn't quite as marked as it is in the modern day in terms of like prices. But there's definitely still a variation there.
So I'll take a particular liking to the second most expensive.
Sure. So just in terms of like cash, like getting a few drinks in won't be a problem. If you start doing things like buying around for the whole bar and that kind of stuff, then it will start to impact your available cash.
Okay, so yeah, so I'll order one, and I'll kind of as I'm doing that, I'll notice Lorimer, and I'll be, Sergeant, do allow me. Should we make make that two? Thank you.
He will.
Just wanted to say thank you so much for your help earlier. It was very much appreciated.
He'll kind of like realize who you are, and then like rush to kind of accept, like too quickly, and then try and work out what's going on after the fact. He's like, I recognize this person. They're offering me a drink. Except, who is this person? How do I know them? What's going on? It's kind of his thought process, and you see that like writ on his face. And at the end of that process is maybe I shouldn't be accepting drinks from this person, but by then it's been served and he's had it, so it's a bit late. He says, "Thank you. That's good choice. That's a very nice whiskey."
So I'll have to remember that one. I'll see if when I'm back home, I must see if I can get a case sent down. I must say I'm very much enjoying the spirit of this place. It's got a real verve to it up here. It's kind of like gesturing over, particularly to the people having their little tune session. I must say, having had a look at all of the reports to the to the Mccall case. I must say it must have been a terrible shock. I don't imagine
Yes,
you have
yeah,
much of that sort of thing up here.
no, we don't. I mean, we are as we are the main police force here, and so we cover a wide area. And there's more than you think. The farmer disputes and things can get rather ugly, but the nature of what happened was quite shocking. Enough to sober a man up, you might say.
Quite. I'll finish my whiskey and just kind of catch the bum's eye.
Cool. He thanks you again as another one's being poured and takes a big gulp.
Had you had many run-ins with the McLeod boy before?
No, I didn't know pretty much anyone from that village before this started and we were called up. I was aware of it. I'd never been before.
Funny, he seems a gentle sort. Strange.
I mean, gentle or no, there's no way that boy could have done what was done to that body.
You reckon?
The arms were ripped from their sockets. The cuts, you should have seen them. The only way that laddie could have done what was done to that body is if he were possessed by the devil.
Lord preserve us.
And the way he cries out in his sleep, he's obviously troubled by some spirits lingering over him. It's awful to hear.
You said he was at like early 20s.
McLeod is, yeah.
Yeah. Like how early? Do you reckon he went to war?
Probably not, just because the people who went to war wouldn't have. If he'd gone to war, his chances of having survived were slim. He would have been infantry. Typically, people who went from the villages didn't tend to come back unless they went right at the end. He was probably close to have been looking at that kind of thing, but he's worked on the farms most of his life, pretty much all his working life.
Okay.
If you're thinking like a PTSD kind of route, no,
I'm just wondering if there's an angle there.
You know?
Sorry, Kath?
Shell shock. They hadn't invented PTSD yet, I suspect.
No, indeed, yeah. What would they? I don't
Battle
know what
fatigue, I think they
battle
called it.
fatigue. You're
Yeah,
quite right.
shell
That's
shock, wasn't it? Yeah.
that's the battle fatigue was even the term they would have used at the time, which is pre-shell shock. You're right.
Sure.
He doesn't attribute it to that, which you think he would do if he'd been.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of cases like this anywhere else in Scotland?
Well, you hear all sorts, don't you, sir? He will start going into quite a rambling and discriminatory conversation about.
He starts banging on about gypsies.
Yeah. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of the simpletons who don't live in a who just live out and don't see anyone in a long time. There's a lot of what we would probably call today like conspiracy theory kind of stuff. Obviously it's not that kind of level, but like you can tell he's very superstitious and he does believe that these things happen. He's just never really experienced anything like this himself. So he doesn't sound surprised that this kind of stuff has happened, but it's shaking him that he's the one experiencing it.
Just trying to think if there's anything else I want to try and push on here.
He, as you talk and drink, he quite quickly descends into near incomprehensible mutterings. His accent gets thicker and you struggle to understand what he's saying, all of you being dirty southerners. It's probably been a bit of a struggle this far even then. So as all the locals start drinking, you just lose any kind of ability to understand what they're saying. And your own drinking.
Fully expect him to request the rest of the bottle of gin in order to show everyone else how bad it is.
If he had,
Taste the piss these lot drink.
if he was sober enough and not focused on drinking himself into oblivion and of a more competitive nature, he absolutely would. But he is, he's an addict and he's not focused on stuff that isn't going to feed that.
Fight another day.
Yeah. You guys can spend the rest of the evening how you like. It's getting quite late. You probably can't get much more useful information out of anyone that is still awake. And unless there is anything specific you want to do, we'll probably call it there, and we can start again in the morning next time as it is getting close to 9:30.
Sounds good.
Yes, no, I think that's yeah. I think I'd probably just see if there's any if there was a small bookshelf or something at the hotel of perhaps more local folklore than I could find in the library in London. I might try and pick up something like that to read in my chambers. But yes, no, I'd be ready for bed.
Sure. The stuff available at the hotel itself is the more like Scottish classics available of like literary fiction stuff, rather than like
Sure.
there'll be local guides and stuff, but there's nothing like that niche in the hotel.
Yeah. In which case, if no one else objects, I would also take the coroner's report with me to check out in case I missed anything.
Happy for you to take it if you want it. Yeah.
Cool. Wicked. We will call it there then. Thanks very much, everyone. And we will pick this up as soon as we can arrange a time that we can all make.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Wicked.
I haven't got anything to do.